What is up, guys? Welcome to a brand new video. The new AD carry item changes are up on the PB at the moment, so I thought it'd be a good time to take a look and see how much is actually going to change, and it's quite a lot actually. There are some pretty big buffs, but I think the tank meta is actually coming back. Kill me. There are 4 major areas though, so lifesteal, the early crit build, armor pen, and attack speed items, which are listed in the description, and also we're going to go over what they actually mean at the end. Let's start with what I think is probably going to force the biggest change, and anyone who builds the famous BF sword into Runaans. So basically everybody, that is gone. Probably not going to do that anymore. Infinity Edge cost has been lowered by 200 gold, and the zeal cost has been lowered by 100 gold. So overall 300 cheaper. If you want to go down this path, it is so good for crit champions. That's a kill worth of gold, by the way. It's like saying to crit champions like a Jinx or a Caitlyn, okay, you can start the game with 1 extra kill. Have fun. It's 40% crit now together, 50% increased crit damage, 70 AD, which feeds into your abilities and your crit damage, remember, and 15% attack speed. You're really just swapping around the way you do this, honestly. You'll probably get like BF sword, then zeal, then into Infinity Edge, I think. Honestly, Infinity Edge rush is actually legit good, and damage wise it's very similar. You have to remember that even though you attack less, like your abilities are more comparative damage early game, so having more AD is actually a big deal. It does boost your damage a lot. I think this is going to make champions like Caitlyn, Twitch, Jinx, Tristana all stronger in the lane phase now, in my opinion. It's even bigger with the attack speed items, which we'll get into later into this video. Actually, no, we're going to do that next instead. So attack speed items have some decent changes in here now, so they're kind of changing how they work a little bit. The Phantom Dancer though is 50 gold more, but that's it. There are no proper changes expected for PD. It's in a pretty good place at the moment. The Runaans build path though has been changed, so it's now dagger, zeal, dagger, just to be in line with the other attack speed items. Basically it's the same as like a PD. The bulk damage now though, so the 2 extra hits are going to be 40% of your AD rather than 25%, which is pretty good, even though we have no more 15 on hit damage. So it's going to be worse for heavy attack speed on hit builds like a Cogmore, but better for crit builds with that higher percentage AD on each bolt. Now this was supposed to be an overall nerf according to Rito, but I'm not really seeing that. Like, I just can't help but think this is much better late game with a full build and that 40% AD thrown around. That's pretty cool and stuff, but that's not even the biggest change here for attack speed items. So the shard thing that builds into rapid fire cannon Shiv is 50 gold more, but the damage is up to 50 from 40. And this is where it gets interesting. So rapid fire cannon damage is actually down. It's going to be 50 to 120 now from 50 to 160. It's going to come with a new effect though, which means your attacks are energized 25% faster. Now an energized attack applies to Shiv, warlords, and rapid fire cannon. This is now way more of like a third attack speed item for a crit build. I wouldn't really ever get this if you're only going to get 1 item. So if it's just Infinity Edge and rapid fire, not really worth, but Infinity Edge, Shiv, and rapid fire, that could be pretty good. The whole idea, by the way, which is a cool idea, is this is much better with the warlords keystone and a Shiv in the same build because it charges both of them faster, so you heal more and more lightning. I know what you're thinking, these items don't stack, you're an idiot, but actually no, apparently they're going to stack, but not the damage part. You either do the rapid fire cannon damage or the Shiv, which with these changes will always be a Shiv basically. What will stack though is the lightning, the damage to structures, the bonus damage to minions, the extra range, and they proc can crit now. You're basically combining the effects of Shiv and rapid fire cannon together if you buy both of them. With the Shiv, the energized attack has been swapped with rapid fire cannon basically, so it's 60 to 160 from 50 to 120. It really is basically a swap. The bonus damage to minions is 65% from 120 though, so it is going to be worse against minions and wave clear and stuff, but better versus champions. This could be an insane change with rapid fire cannon now though. So 160 damage hits up to 5 champions, by the way, in a team fight. Possibly 800 damage spread just from this. It's actually magic damage as well, so them stacking armor is not going to help them either. Like, it's a good mix of damage. The Shiv proc can crit, remember, with infinity. That's 250% damage extra, so 2000 damage spread in a team fight. Yes please. And that is 2000 damage that you get 25% faster with rapid fire cannon and 25% faster heal stacking with warlords. I really like this change, honestly. It gives you a really good reason to go Infinity Edge, Shiv, rapid fire cannon if you want single target burst now as an AD carry running warlords, and it's going to be so strong. So let's move on to armor pen items, and this is probably the second biggest thing here. Armor pen is getting a stat wide nerf just as armor items get a buff. Fuck me sideways. Last Whisper is back down to 35% armor pen, and I can live with that. You know, it was pretty busted change to buff it to 45% for 1300 gold, so I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with though is Lord Dominic's is 100 gold cheaper, up to 20% bonus damage on the effect, which is kind of nice, but the armor pen is still 35%. Mortal Reminder also 100 gold cheaper, but 35% armor pen still. They're getting rid of the 45% armor pen completely from the game. You can only get up to 35% now. Mortal Reminder is pretty screwed with this, to be honest. Like, it's legit only there for the heal debuff now. In my opinion, 35% is not enough of a justification to buy it. Dominic's has the physical damage bonus up to 20%, so 1,000 more health equals the 20%, by the way. That's kind of good at least, like 20% bonus physical damage. I'll take that, but pretty sure actually, seeing as its physical damage is also reduced by armor. With less arm pen on the item, that's not really a buff, is it? That's a cheeky little Riot thing of, here, we can give you this so you feel better about it, but it doesn't make any difference. By the way, Black Cleaver also, the arm pen per stack is 4% from 5%, so the total would now be 24%, not 30%. That's even big for bruisers as well, but like AD carries who could abuse this item, actually Misfortune and Ash and stuff, overall they're just making armor harder to deal with. Now there's two things with that, okay? So one, if you pick full AD, you're basically screwing yourself big time now and just resigning yourself to lose if the enemy team has a tank. Number two, all armor items in the game right now are getting less health and more armor this patch. So not only is the arm pen going down, but all the tanks that stack armor actually have more now anyway. That combination screams tank meta to me. Like when AD carries are supposed to be the tank killers and they won't be as good at it, plus tanks are better with more armor. It's just like, oh no, here we go again. Let's move on before I get too salty. Lifesteal is getting some buffs actually. So Blade the Rune King will get some small nerfs here eventually. They're not there just yet, but Rito have said it's too strong. So instead of majorly nerfing that to bring it in line with Bloodthirster, they're actually going to buff other lifesteal items instead. Bloodthirster is getting more AD to 80, which I'll take, I guess. More AD is always nice, but it's not massive. Death Dance though, the AD is to 80 and 30% damage taken is dealt as a bleed every 3 seconds instead, which is up from 15%. I think this is more for bruisers, right? But maybe 30% is actually decent for ADs as well. If someone bursts you for 1,000 damage, you only take 700 straight away, and you can lifesteal to cover the extra 300 coming in over the next 3 seconds. It gives you more time basically against bursts, and it could actually be really strong like this, I think. If you have decent lifesteal, you do effectively take 30% less upfront damage. By the way, the last item change, Executioner's Calling, the price is up 200 gold to 1,000 now from 800. That's pretty expensive actually just for a healing debuff. I'm not sure you want to rush this against a Soraka anymore. So those are actually the changes, but I've seen a few comments recently like, this is nice, it's a good video, but what does this actually mean for the game, I guess? So I want to look at that real quick. Infinity Edge and Zeal item start, the biggest winners for that are going to be Caitlyn and Jinx in my opinion. You already have Infinity Edge as a start that's effective for these champions, and now it's just massively better. Like 300 gold cheaper is like getting an extra kill. They're going to be much stronger at 1 to 2 items and in early skirmish fights, I think. So I'd expect these two to get much better, honestly. Tristana also, it helps her power up early, which I think is a really important stage in the game for her. If she gets fed in the lane phase, she can be way more viable, but if she doesn't, she kind of falls off mid game. Twitch as well, if Blade gets a nerf, then we're likely going to see him pick this up again, like the full crit build, and it'll make him much stronger in early trades or fights, especially with his E and Fervor. Ash is probably going to do the same thing and default back to something like this with her passive damage, and Vayne as well. I know it's a bit weird, but Qmax Vayne with this could actually be really, really strong. It's so much AD. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but this could actually screw over aggressive lanes, to be honest. So what is a Lucian and Draven like going to do if Blade is nerfed, but crit champions get stronger sooner into the game? You have less time to punish these guys, and if you don't, then they outscale you even more heavily than before. That's my first thought anyway, so it might actually like promote this kind of farm style of AD carry again. Those are the main ones with that anyway. The Runaans changes, the biggest losers are going to be on hit builds, so like Kog'Maw, Kennen, Varus, Kalista. They are all going to get a nerf from this, especially as an early core item. We might just see them adjust their builds though, actually. I don't think this is going to be as good anymore. The biggest winners would be everyone, actually, if they built this. I know it sounds really weird, but more physical damage on the bolts means more lifesteal, which is legit going to heal for an insane amount now, which is super, super good. The obvious winners would be Caitlyn and Jinx again. These have really good synergy with runes, like you stack your passive faster with Kate and AoE rockets with Jinx. They also get a good amount of AD, a full build as well, so an extra 15% on top of that stuff will make a really big difference in my opinion. It's kind of same for late game champions in general with this Runaans, like it's going to heal for a lot, it's going to do a lot of AoE damage, but the Shiv and rapid fire cannon synergy is something you don't really want to pass up really if you're running warlords. If you're running Fervor though, Fervor is more AD, so 15% more use on the bolts is decent, honestly. Again, that's kind of why I think Jinx is going to be nuts with this, by the way. The way I expect it to kind of go is if you're a crit champion but you use Fervor, then Runes is really good, but if you're a crit champion using warlords, then the Shiv and rapid fire. Speaking of which, I think the warlords crit users really win out with the rapid fire and Shiv changes. Like the single target damage with crits and the AoE damage with the Shiv proc can do up to like 2,000. Like what the hell is that? Specifically, Vayne adds to her burst, will make her 3-item spike really, really good. Plus she doesn't care about the arm pen nerfs as much. I legit think she'll be pretty overpowered when the mid-season patch hits. Like she's perfect for that kind of meta and she's not that bad now. Jin's crit build with this will be really, really good on him, by the way. It might be what he needs, to be honest, to come back a little bit. We'll have the higher range with the rapid fire and the extra burst from the Shiv. Imagine that Shiv damage doing like 300-400 from really high range with the rapid fire cannon and the 4th crit shot on Jhin. That would be insane damage. Draven would have even more burst damage with this if he wanted to do it. Now, normally you don't go triple crit, but it would fit him pretty well actually. The arm pen changes are going to affect every single AD carry, but Vayne at least has true damage, which is another reason I think it's going to help her out. She'll be really strong. Her crits are going to do less, so even that's going to suck, but at least tanks are supposed to be doing less damage. We'll see about that one if it actually happens though. This is kind of the weird thing about this entire video is, yes, crit items are going to get a buff. They're going to be better earlier into the game before there is armor, so that should be a good thing. The problem is though, once you get into team fights, like crit builds really heavily rely on arm pen to actually make the crits hurt, like to get through that armor. If they can't get through the armor, then the crits don't really do anything. That's more where on hit builds come in, but those are going to be nerfed as well. So we might actually see a situation where crit builds are really good in the mid game, but late game they're just not going to do as much because 35% is not really enough. I hope you guys enjoyed the first look at the new AD carry item changes coming very soon. I know I'm pretty excited. This could be actually pretty cool, especially rapid fire cannon and Shiv together. I'm really looking forward to that one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, but for now, let's go to the robots.